wrongful incarceration. And so I wrote a grant and I was accepted to Harvard University to do research on the topic. And I did all this research. I discovered terrible things. Like, did you know that at any given moment, over 2.5 million people are in prison? Over 4 million people are on parole or on probation. Here in Washington, D.C., 1 out of 4 Black men will at some time be in jail or in prison. 1 out of 28 American children have a parent who's in prison. Every time anyone is in prison, it represents a kind of family separation because we are all members of a family. And I wanted to write something about this, but I had these statistics, but I didn't have a story. A problem is not a story, a situation is not a story. And I didn't know what to do. So here I am at Harvard, they want us to give a presentation on our work, and all I have to show for my time there is a very underlined, battered copy of the new Jim Crow, a whole stack of angry index cards, but no story, and I didn't know what to do. I went home to Atlanta, where I'm from, to spend some time with my mother, which I do when I'm upset. And while I was there, I spent some time at the mall, which I do when I'm upset. And when I was at the mall, I heard a couple arguing. The woman was fantastically dressed. She looked just gorgeous. And the guy, he looked fine. He looked okay, but she looked great. And I could tell that they were in love and in trouble. And I heard her say, clear as a bell, she said, "Roy, you know you wouldn't have waited on me for 7 years." And I was interested. I didn't know him, I didn't know her, but I was looking and I felt like, you're right, girl, he probably would not have waited on you for 7 years. And he looked at her and he said, I don't know what you're talking about because this would have happened to you in the first place. And I looked at her and I thought, you're right, this probably would have happened to her. And for me, I know I have a novel when I'm writing from a place where both people are telling the truth, both people are right, and both people are wrong. Because when I do that, I have a moral quandary. So, An American Marriage is the story of a young couple who are only married 18 months when the husband is arrested for a crime he does not commit. As she says, I don't know if I was yet a wife or if I was still a bride. You know, she says I was still combing the rice out of my hair. Her daddy still paying for the wedding when he is arrested and given a lengthy sentence. And so then the question is this, what is loyalty? How do we take care of one another in times of crisis? The question of what is selfish? Is it more selfish if she wants to live her own life? Or is it more selfish for him not to want her to live her own life? How do we make compromises? And so I started writing this novel. When I first started writing it, I wrote it all from the point of view of the wife, Celestial, because I'm a Southern writer, and Southern novels are all about women who don't do what they're told. And I wrote it, but it didn't feel like the whole truth. So then I wrote the whole novel a second time, all from his point of view, the man who's been stripped of everything he worked for and put into prison and has to figure out how to find his way back. And when I wrote that, it was easy, but it didn't feel right because I realized it was a story I had heard so many times before. I realized that it essentially was the same story as the Odyssey that I read in high school, right? Like Odysseus, he just is on this, facing all these trials, and he just wants to come home to a faithful woman and a clean house. And that was written in 70 BC, right? So I was like, what is the update of that story? And then I decided, I heard Claudia Rankine read from a poem from her collection, Citizen, and I used it as the epigraph of this book, and it says, what happens to you doesn't belong to you, only half concerns you. It's not yours only. And I realized that this story was not his story or her story, it was their story, and I toggled their points of view, but it still didn't feel complete. Because I don't think it's a spoiler to say this, but An American Marriage is a story about justice, it's a love story, and it's also a love triangle. And so I added the voice of another man, and when I had all three of their voices, I felt like I had the whole story. of what happens when people are forced to make decisions they shouldn't have to make in the first place.